thank you for coming. First time I've had both the authors here together. I'm pretty happy about tonight because we get to get Patty every so often, but this is the first time Anne's officially toured, so it'd be nice to Anne. First up, Anne Bishop I met, we were discussing this, I think it was 2009 when she came to town sort of on a quick bit, and we had a little mini signing, but this is the first time she's come for an official book tour. Volume 3 of the others, sort of the brand new look at fairy tales retold. Vision of Silver is the new book. She's here to read and talk about that. Please welcome Anne Bishop.
Yes, much lower for me.
Just try that. Fine tune a little. Okay.
Whoops. How are we? Okay. So how many of you have already read Vision of Silver? Okay, not that many of you. Therefore, most of you won't know that I've changed some of this so that I could edit it for the reading. But when you get to read the book and say, that's not what it sounded like, well, there's a reason for that. It was on purpose. So this is a scene from Monty. I'm going to raise that down a little bit. Monty has been called to the courtyard. Simon has called him and said, we've got something of yours, come here now. And he can't figure out what it is, but he's going to show up. They used the back door at Howling Goodreads. Nothing unusual in the stockroom except a noticeable lack of stock, but there was a crowd at the archway leading into a little bite. Simon, Nathan, and Blair turned to look at him. Simon handed a pencil and paper to Nathan, then moved away from the door, tipping his head to indicate Monty should follow. Something of interest? Monty asked. The Lizzie, Simon replied. He must have heard wrong. Lizzie and her mother are here? My Lizzie? No, the Lizzie and Boo Bear are here. He felt the blood drain out of his head. What about her mother? Where is Elaine? That's a good question, Lieutenant. Simon studied him. Is it usual for a pup that young to travel alone? We wouldn't do it, but of course it isn't usual, Monty snapped. He heard a soft growl and wasn't sure if the warning came from Nathan or Blair. No, he said, struggling to bring his voice back to calm courtesy, while his heart pounded. Lizzie here alone? How? Why? She's only 7 years old. A girl that young shouldn't be, traveling alone. Did she say anything about her mother? Simon looked grim. No, but there's some blood on Boo Bear, and it doesn't smell like the Lizzie. God's above and below. Where? She's in a little bite, having a snack with Sam and Meg. She's not hurt? No. Something in Wolfgar's eyes. No wasn't a lie, but it didn't fill in the whole truth. Can I ask? Kowalski stepped up to join them. How did Lizzie end up here in the courtyard? Nathan was on the same train. When he realized there weren't any adults with her, he guarded her and brought her here. His little girl had needed a guard. Would he have received a different kind of phone call if a wolf hadn't been on the train? How life circled around. He'd been transferred to Lakeside because he had killed a man in order to protect a girl who was a wolf. And now a wolf had come to the aid of his own little girl. He would make a special visit to the Universal Temple and light an extra candle for Mikos, the guardian spirit who watched over policemen, firefighters, and medical personnel, and it seemed watched over their families too. I want to see her, Monty said. Go ahead. Bland words that made him stop and consider. He wanted to see Lizzie and needed the reassurance that she was all right, but he wondered why 3 grown wolves were crowding around an archway instead of going into the coffee shop and taking a seat at another table. "Are you standing at the archway to avoid scaring Lizzie?" Monty asked. Nathan and Blair snorted a laugh. Simon stared at Monty. "We're standing there because, for a small human, the Lizzie is territorial. She's already whacked Skippy for coming over to take a sniff, and we can hear everything just fine from the archway." He paused. "Besides, Boo Bear really stinks." Kowalski coughed. The wolves made room for Monty to stand in the archway and observe his daughter. She seemed fine, chatting away with Sam and Meg, pausing every so often to relay a comment from that silly bear. Gods, Elaine had been furious with him when he came back from an outing with Lizzie and had that bear instead of the doll Elaine had said would be a suitable toy. But Lizzie hadn't wanted a doll. She'd focused on that furry brown bear, pulling it off a shelf she could barely reach and holding on so fiercely he'd had the choice of taking the bear or leaving the child. The dolls were dutifully played with when Elaine insisted Lizzie play with something that looked human. But it was Boo Bear, her bestest friend, who went everywhere with the girl. Apparently that was still true, despite Elaine's infatuation with Nicholas Scratch and his damn HFL movement. Meg looked up toward the doorway. "Lizzie," she said as she pointed. Lizzie turned and saw him. "Daddy!" She scrambled out of her chair and ran to him, dumping Boo Bear on the floor. Monty dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her. "Lizzie." He kissed her cheek, her forehead. "Lizzie girl, you okay, baby?" "We're okay. We were on the train and there was a bad man and the wolf police scared him away." Nathan looked up at Monty. "Thank you." The wolf shrugged. "Should have." He glanced at the girl and stopped. "Nathan's teeth got really big," Lizzie said. "I saw them." One of the wolves behind him sighed. "Lizzie, where's your mother?" Monty asked. Her eyes held a blend of guilt and fear, an expression he knew well. She looked that way any time something happened because she'd been doing something she'd been told not to do. Lizzie understood that actions had consequences. She just didn't want to believe that applied to her. Of course, his transfer and the disruption in all of their lives was a powerful example of actions and consequences. "Lizzie?" "Mommy got hurt. She said I needed to be a big girl and go on the train by myself. Me and Boo Bear." Hurt could mean a lot of things to a child. Where did she get hurt? Lizzie placed a hand over her belly. "No!" Meg shouted. Monty looked up. Lizzie turned and yelled, "Bad dog!" and ran toward the table just as Skippy grabbed one of Boo Bear's stubby front legs and tried to run off with the prize. "I'll get him," Sam said. He pushed down his shorts, yanked the t-shirt over his head, shifted into wolf form, and rushed at Skippy, chasing the juvenile wolf in and around the tables, both of them banging into chairs. Lizzie ran back to the table, grabbed the last bite of her sandwich, and threw it at Skippy, distracting him just long enough for Sam to get his teeth into one of Boo Bear's back legs. The first game of tug lasted only a few seconds before seams split, and Skippy darted under a table with a fuzzy front leg. Sam dropped the torn back leg, grabbed the rest of the bear, and brought it back to the table. He dropped it at Lizzie's feet before shifting to the form of a naked, grinning boy who was so obviously pleased with himself. No one spoke. Getting to his feet, Monty felt laughter bubble up at the absurdity, along with the father's panic. Lizzie wasn't wailing about Boo Bear being in pieces, yet, but that was probably because she was getting her first good look at a naked boy. Sam didn't look that much older than Lizzie, and he wasn't doing anything, but still, naked boy. Simon pushed into a little bite, followed by Nathan. "Sam, put your clothes on," Simon said mildly. "Meg? You okay? Meg!" "Can I help?" Kowalski asked, easing around Monty. "Keep an eye on things," Tess said. She strode to the table where Meg stood frozen and took the girl's hand. "Meg and I need some air and time to settle. We'll be at the liaison's office." She led Meg out of the coffee shop. Watching the two females leave sobered Monty. Meg Corbin was the key to so many things, and so far, she was the only Cassandra Sang who had managed to live outside a compound without having breakdowns. If she was starting to break now, how much would break with her? Simon scooped up Boo Bear's hind leg, then approached the table where Skippy lay mouthing the front leg and growling. The wolf guard snarled. Skippy dropped the mangled front leg and scooted farther under the table. Nathan went around the counter. He came back out and held up one of the wolf cookies. "Skippy! Cookie!" Skippy leaped up and thumped his head on the underside of the table hard enough to be momentarily stunned. Nathan hauled the juvenile wolf away from the table and half carried him out the back door. Simon looked at Sam. "Go with them." Sam stared at his uncle for a moment before running to catch up with Nathan, which left Lizzie literally hugging the stuffing out of Boo Bear, while Simon, Blair, Kowalski, and Monty formed a circle around her. "Daddy?" Now the tears began to fall. "Boo Bear got hurt." "I know, Lizzie girl, but—" "I have called the Wolf Guard Body Walker," Henry Beauregard rumbled as he stepped through the archway and joined them. "She will meet us at the medical office and do what she can." "But he's a bear!" Lizzie wailed. A little more stuffing dribbled out of the torn spots. "So am I," Henry said. "But I am the only grizzly in the courtyard, so when I am hurt, the wolf tends to me." He held out a big hand. "Henry is the courtyard's spirit guide," Simon said. "He is wise." Lizzie hesitated, then gave Boo Bear to Henry. The grizzly studied the toy bear. Then he sniffed the face, the places where the legs had been torn off, the seam along the back. Watching Henry's face, Monty eased Lizzie behind him. He felt Kowalski shift position to provide additional protection. "There is sickness here," Henry said. "The body walker must tend to Boo Bear." He exchanged a look with Simon. "Daddy?" Lizzie's eyes swam with tears that tore at Monty's heart. "Is Boo Bear going to need another operation?"
When this unusual author says, "Yeah, I can't tour them," and the publicist will say, "Why? Like, you're expecting a grandkid? Well, my horses are going to give birth." Well, that's not your typical answer, but Patty, it's actually real. She's not just saying, "I'm washing my hair that night." No, my horse is about to give birth. Mercy Thompson has been one of my favorite series ever since I first discovered the Moon Call, and I finally started reading Charles and Anna. And I read your short collection, and had not read any of the stories in there because I don't usually read the anthologies that much, so they were all brand new. So it was loads of fun. And we are officially here for the 4th Charles and Anna novel, Dead Heat, which of course...
If any of you were here for the Chuck Palahniuk book signing, it's not here. Sorry.
Charles and Anna decided to go on vacation, and as you know, nothing will go wrong with that. So here's Patricia Briggs to talk about that. Thank you.
Okay.
You gotta sort of hold it
That's
up.
okay, they don't like me anyway.
Okay, with him. Let him mess with it. See, this thing likes to tilt over, so. Okay, good luck.
I love starting things like that. So, how many of you, let's see, I'm not going to ask that question. Those of you who want to read along and notice all the words that I change as we go through because I don't like them. Because unlike Anne, I actually change the words because I don't like them, not because it would make a better reading. I'm going to do a reading, and it's a short one, from page 47 of the book, 46 of the book. Charles inhaled blood and magic, blood he'd been half expecting, at least until he found the children all apparently safe. Still, the blood was not surprising. See, I changed that. Okay. It was the fey magic he felt carelessly caressing his skin that changed the game. There weren't supposed to be fey out and about. They had, with great fanfare, locked themselves away on their reservations, declaring themselves free of the laws of the United States. For the last several months, had made no appearances outside the reservations that he was aware of. But he knew magic, knew the feel of fey magic. Brother Wolf rose, and abruptly colors dimmed a little, and the shadows revealed their secrets to his eyes. There was no one in the room he entered. It was a typical family room, with a big screen TV on one wall and bookshelves filled with trophies, photos, books, and games on the other. But the blood was fresh and nearby. He angled his head to see if he could pick up where the scent was coming from without making a large movement that would be more likely to attract attention if something was waiting for him. Upstairs, the TV was still blaring. If it weren't so much noise, his ears would have been of more use, but the noise would make it more difficult for any enemy to hear him, too. The floor creaked somewhere in the house. He thought it was to his left, but it was difficult to tell. He moved quickly to that side of the room, staying low, pausing next to the wall. He didn't trust walls. He'd broken through a few too many in search of prey himself. Sheetrock and 2x4s didn't stop a werewolf, and a lot of fey were just as strong. But as a visual barrier, it worked okay. He put his hand cautiously around the corner. It was the laundry room. There was blood all over the floor here, some of it splattered, and then drag marks that slid around the appliances and out of sight. He paced cautiously forward, past the washer and dryer, and found himself staring into the eyes of a wild-eyed woman who was crouched in the bathroom, hidden on the far side of the room. He froze where he was. She was sitting on the floor, legs crisscrossed, with a damn big knife in her hand, and that hand was shaking as though she had palsy. The motion could have been caused by blood loss, shock, or both. Long bloody slices, some deep and others shallow, decorated both of her arms and her legs through what had been a very nice pair of slacks. She bared her teeth at him. "The children must bleed," she gritted out, and the knife shook in her right hand. "Bleed out the bad." She dug the knife into her thigh, and he winced. But she didn't push it deep, just slid it along her leg, parallel to the other wounds that bled there. "Something in my head wants me to kill my children," she said in a hurried whisper, very different from the voice she'd started speaking with. "You have to stop me." Brother Wolf snarled at this enemy he could not fight with tooth or claw. Fey magic surrounded the woman. Charles needed to figure out how to help cage his wife. The magic clinging to her meant he was better equipped to do it than anyone else here, not that it wouldn't have been helpful to have a witch or someone else to back him up. His da would have been useful. "Chelsea Sani," he said, with a push of his own magic, trying to give her something to cling to, and it wasn't enough. She paused and rocked forward, falling until she was on her hands and knees, and she started to crawl. Not toward him, he didn't think. He wasn't her target. "There are bad children here. Little boys who steal food, little girls who don't play well with others, little boys who—" She dropped all the way to the ground then and writhed as she groaned. "Chelsea!" Brother Wolf demanded, pulling on his pack, on his dad's power. Ice with the cold of winter, the power came to his asking and hit the woman with his call. She stopped making noise, stopped moving except for heaving of her ribs. Then she rolled her head until she could see him. She met his eyes, opened her mouth, and shut it. She sliced open her hand, leaving the knife in the wound. "Blood makes it easier to fight. Who are you?" "I'm Charles, a friend of Joseph's. Can you tell me what happened?" He edged closer, calling upon gifts given to him by both his da and his mother's blood. His skin warmed and tingled uncomfortably, but he could see the spells that encompassed her. Where fresh blood flowed into the steel of the knife, the magic was drawn more tightly, never quite touching the cold iron. It pulled uneasily around the open wound, thinning around the rest of her body. Witch-born, he thought, for her blood to have that kind of power, but not trained, or she'd have broken the geas. She gasped, and a tremor shook her body as though she were freezing to death. "Werewolf? Charles, you're Joseph's werewolf?" she half asked, half demanded. "Yes, I'm here to help you." She laughed breathlessly. "Too late for that. Too late for me. I sent them to a room with a door they could lock against me, but they need to get out. You go take my babies away somewhere safe." There was a command in her voice, and he found himself shaking it off with an effort. Brother Wolf found that very interesting. "They're safe," he assured her. Her eyes widened, fey magic flared, and he realized, too late, he'd made a mistake. Some of the fey are quick, and whatever magic had done to her had given her better than human speed, but Charles had been edging toward her, and that gave Brother Wolf time to move even faster, and catch the hand that held the knife just before she shoved it up under her jaw. It had been a two-part geas, then, forcing her to kill her children, and when that was done, or if that wasn't possible, to kill herself. Her death would make it more difficult to find the fey who had done this to her. She fought him, fought to control the knife with strength that was not her own, and he finally drove the blade into the floor, through the linoleum tile, and into the wooden floorboards below. He sank it deep so he didn't have to break her arm. Sobbing, she tried to pull the knife out, but suddenly, between one breath and the next, the scent of fey disappeared, and she collapsed, her breathing thready. "Safe?" Chelsea Sani whispered. "Tell me again." "They're safe," he told her, and her body went limp. as if she'd used the last of her strength, and he knew what had broken the geese. He took a good look at the blood on the floor, the way her last wound was not bleeding as it should. Her heartbeat was irregular. She'd lost too much blood and was losing more through every cut she'd made in her own body in the effort to keep her children safe from the magic driving her. It had been an incredible feat of willpower and quick thinking for a woman who was only human, but it had come at a cost. She was dying. Even if they were at a hospital, it would be unlikely they could save her in this condition. She was dying, and that satisfied the geese. We could change her, Brother Wolf told Charles. She knows how to fight. That's it. This really good microphone right here. Do we want to stand and do a Q&A or sit and do a Q&A? What we're standing works better, we're told. Okay, so we're going to stand up.
Standing is nice.
Maybe in front of the table instead of behind.
Okay.
And that way we're not all bent over like this. Okay, so Q&A, folks. Look, I'm good. Can you guys all hear me if I bellow at you? Okay, if somebody from the back can't hear me, that's fine. Stand up and wave.
She didn't mean that.
Stand up and wave, and I'll grab the microphone. When I was 6, the teacher used to make me talk to the little boy who was deaf and had hearing aids. I couldn't hear anybody else except for me. So, okay. We're going to do Q&A together. What we'd like, maybe if we can have you, the audience, maybe go back and forth so we can ask each other. So if somebody has a question for Anne first. Since I'm opening my big mouth, we'll make you ask a question of Anne, so she has to open hers.
How many books are in your series?
Okay, that's awesome, but if you can raise your hand, and that way we can make sure if somebody else, we can do this. That's
Okay.
awesome, thank you.
Right now there's 5. I just turned in number 4, which now has an official title of Marked in Flesh. And in a couple of weeks I'll start at least trying to figure out where book 5 begins. Because it's always the beginning that becomes the challenge of, I know where I ended, I know where I'm going, I just don't know where we start. It's sort of like me using a map, yeah. For Patty?
Okay.
I know we've been hearing rumors of a Tom and Moira book, and I was just wondering how substantial those are.
Very, I just signed the contract for it. So we had this talk, my editor and I had this talk about Tom and Moira, because I've been wanting to do a Tom and Moira book, yeah? Use the mic. Okay, that's my husband. The deaf guy in the back, no, I'm just kidding. He's actually not deaf at all. Okay, so my editor and I were talking about how to do this, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to bring it out as a paperback, and that will let people who haven't read either series have a really gentle entryway. This is a book that's not dependent on any other books in the series, and there's, they don't have to pick it up and go, okay, there's 12 books in the series, where do I find the first 11? And is it worth bothering with a book I haven't read before? And also, then kind of as a gift to readers who have been really awesome in supporting me all these years with the hardback sales. So we can give you some paperbacks to kind of ease your pocketbook. Yes.
Are you planning on continuing the ephemera series?
I don't know. I circle around the series and ask the characters, said, hey guys, what's happening? You want to tell a story? And I go, wolves. So they're kind of living their own lives and doing their own things, and right now my brain is just chock full of Thasia and Simon and Meg and where they're going. And when the other stories are ready to surface, they tend to. I hope to do more ephemera, but I've got book 5 to write first for the others. For Patty?
Okay. Blue? Yes.
I was wondering if you'd ever write a sequel to Raven's Strike. If that's an appropriate question.
That is a totally appropriate question. Raven's Shadow and Raven's Strike were back in my straight fantasy days, and I absolutely intend to write more straight fantasy, and I intend to write more in that world. And whether it's going to be with those characters or with new characters, I won't swear. The other idea that I've been kind of throwing around after I get all the rest of the books done is to do short stories with characters from various series. I've had so much fun with the Shifting Shadows, which is the Mercyverse books, and to go through and do a short story with all the kind of revisiting characters from the other series is, that maybe I may or may not live long enough to do actual books for. Might be a lot of fun.
Okay. Yes.
Do you have horses, and where did you get the idea of the ponies?
I don't have horses, but I love horses. And the ponies, have you ever seen the cartoon books, Felwell's Ponies? The big, fat, chubby-legged, little smart-mouthed, smart-butt ponies that just enjoy tossing their riders. And that visual was there when I wanted to have the ponies that look harmless, and then almost that image of Russian art of the fabulous fantasy horses for the steeds. And to have this chunky little thing turn into that, that's kind of where those came from. And then, of course, being the fact that they are actually elements, that was kind of cool, too. For Patty?
All the way in the back.
So, Mercy is Peter, Adam is Mike, Luke is Charles, and Anna.
Oh, don't do that. No. No. I am not my characters. If you make me fix your Volkswagen, it will never run again. I will have to say that I've stolen a lot from Mike and from his whole family, which are a bunch of Marines, for my werewolf pack. And people go, where do you get your ideas for a werewolf pack? I have stolen them. Okay. And when you're a writer, a little bit of you goes into all of your characters. But no, Anna and Charles are their own people, and so are Mercy and Adam. And it's Mercy's the easiest character for me to write, because it's like talking, getting up and talking to your best imaginary friend every day. And Charles is my second easiest character to write, which I find really amusing because he's really different from me. Mercy and I share a lot of worldview things, and Charles doesn't share a lot of my worldview, but I have a lot of fun with him anyway. So no, I really try hard not to base characters on real people, and I try even harder not to base them on myself. Anna and I, or Mercy and I would probably vote the same. No. I am not happy with either party, and Mercy likes the Democrats, and we wouldn't vote the same way. So yeah, no, they just, schizophrenia is a really good thing for a writer to have.
Yes.
I was just going to ask, is there going to be more on Sam and Meg's movie, their buddy adventure?
They start out, you have to remember that Simon's a wolf. So his thinking about relationships is...
Did you say, you said Sam? She
Sam,
said Sam.
Oh, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam and Meg keep growing as because he's her little brother now. So yeah, in the fourth book, we have Sam and Meg trying to howl away a danger, which yeah.
Aru.
Aru. Yeah. So she becomes the howling not wolf that they want to know about.
That's awesome. Okay? Go ahead.
So I'm kind of dreading to answer this, but do you have a stopping point for Mercy, or are you going to keep going with the series as long as you can?
My stopping point with Mercy is really if I get tired of it. I promise, being a reader myself, I promise I will not write the book where I'm tired of the characters. And I'm not going to say that, right now I'm going back and forth between Mercy and Anna and Charles, and now we're going to add Moira and Tom, just one book into the mix. And I won't swear that at some point in time I'm not going to stop writing them for a while and go back and do some traditional fantasy or something else, or the 13-year-old horse book that I keep threatening to do periodically. And then go back to it, because I really, seriously, I'm having so much fun. This is the urban fantasy gives me a chance to take all those fairy tales out, all of the werewolves and all the vampire stuff that I just absorbed when I was a kid and still do, and play with it, and it's just been a ball. So at this point in time, I'm not Indian Nun. I'm like that witch, Kim Harrison. And Kelly Armstrong, although Kelly says, short stories are, and so Kelly's kind of wavering, and I'm pushing around that. But yeah, no, at this point in time, I don't have an Indian plan, because that would require a lot more planning than I'm capable of. Yes?
I have a question for both of you. What inspired you guys to start writing these kind of books?
You mean urban fantasy, the kind of books we're doing right now?
It's fun. and like Patty, I read a lot of mythology and folklore, and I loved the B movies with the howling and the fog and all of that stuff with the vampires. And the idea of writing a story that put all of those things in, but had my own spin, yeah, you just, and the brain works, that's how my brain works. It says, wouldn't that be cool to do? I go, oh yeah, sure. Wouldn't be any trouble, would it? It says, no, you just have to do a map of a city and change it all.
Yeah, urban fantasy is just a lot of fun. It's a wonderful playground, and because I can use, I can walk out of the street and look around and go, hey, I'm going to use that house, and I'm going to, we have, it's just awesome to be able to walk down the, and I'm babbling, sorry. Take a deep breath, swallow. Okay, usually I tell people, what started me writing urban fantasies, I have a mortgage to pay, and my editor called me up and said, we know you like reading more urban fantasy, how about writing one? And that's sort of true, but it's also true that it's, in a way, it's really cool. I love the juxtaposition of the real world and the fantasy world, or the horror world. I grew up, when I was like 5, Dark Shadows was on, and my sister used to grab me, she was 9, and we used to go next door, after I got back from kindergarten, go next door over to the lady across the street who would watch Dark Shadows. I don't think my mother ever knew we were doing this. and so that kind of stuff, that's, meat and potatoes to me. I just really love it. So, and the chance to play, right, with werewolves and vampires and nasty things in my own world, and is just very satisfying to my control freak soul.
Yes?
How do you feel about the popularity of e-readers specifically, and how does that change your relationship with the publisher?
With the publisher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it hasn't changed my relationship with the publisher. Any way that someone can have the story, I'm fine with. Some people want paper, and I love paper. I also love the fact that my Nook tablet has 500 books on it, and I couldn't fit that many in my suitcase if I was going to bring it. So, whichever way you want, because it's about the story, not the format.
Yay.
Okay, Ingrid.
Something I've been wondering since Little Month. Has Charles met Wolf? And if they have met, how did that go between them?
Oh, that's interesting. I know that Bran has met Wolf. Okay, we're talking about is the, like Coyote is Coyote, and we have Raven who's Raven, and we also have Wolf who's Wolf. And yeah, I don't know that Charles has met Wolf. He's met Coyote. I mean, you saw that. Well, he saw parts of it. Okay, and he's met an angel, and he's met a dragon. So sometimes those sometimes those might come out in short stories. I won't swear to it. Might just be a backstory for something else. But I don't know that he's met Wolf. I think it would probably go just fine. Somebody like Ben meeting Wolf might be really bad. But that would be really fun. But Charles is so shut down, and I don't think that I don't think that Wolf would even have known that that Charles was getting irate unless matters escalated. I think.
Adam apparently was the first werewolf that wasn't met, and that was written.
Oh yeah, well that's what he said, isn't it? Okay, well then no, they haven't met. But I know he met Brown, so he must not have known that he was a werewolf. That's why I'm really careful when I say things up here where I don't have all my cheat sheets and get a chance to go through. And I really appreciate those of you who tell me these things before I put them in books. Yeah, and I do have this really wonderful woman who's one of, who goes through, well, I have several wonderful women, and my husband who go through my books, and they try to pull out all of the inconsistencies, and that they fail is my failure. So, okay.
Are we still good, or do people have to?
What time is
Dwayne,
it?
are we still good, or do we have to wrap up for some people?
We should probably start signing.
Okay, we'll do a couple more questions and we'll start signing. Go ahead.
Okay.
So for both of you, what are you currently reading right now?
I'm currently reading. Oh, what am I currently reading? I have a long stack. Yes, there's the 500. Well, Shifting Shadows is one of them. I'm also reading a book called The Taste of War, and to get a feel for, it's about the food shortages in World War II, because I figured that will be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two right now that are at the top of the list.
Well, I read Vision Silver a long time ago because we share an editor. Sorry, you guys. I'm going to be talking to her really soon about a manuscript you just turned in. But anyway, not that she would share somebody else's unedited manuscript or anything. No, she really didn't. I just finished a really good book, The Iron Axe, I think, by Stephen Harper. Is that right?
I think so.
The Blood Iron Axe,
He's
maybe?
got 3 pen names, so I have trouble sometimes.
Yeah, right. And that was very enjoyable. I had a really good time. And it felt like a standalone book, but I think there's a sequel coming out this coming December, so which I'm very happy with. I have Maggie Stiefvater's Scorpio Races in my book to read. I also have a manuscript that Ann Sowers, my editor, gave me because she's really excited about it. It's a science fiction, and it has, she said, now I haven't read it, so I can't tell you for sure, but she said she's really excited about it. It's got sentient ships, sort of like the Ship Sang. It reminded her a lot of Anne McCaffrey's Ship Sang series, so I'm really, really stoked and excited to read it, yes. And if it's really awesome, you'll see my name up on the, it won't help her any because I'm a fantasy writer, but I'll still say, this was an awesome book, go read this. So, okay.
Last question? Yeah.
You have a really different spin on the whole vampire werewolf thing. Where did that inspiration come from?
The desire always to write something that I can't read, because it takes me a year to write a book. So if it's going to be something that's similar to what someone else has already done, then I can read their book and have a really good time in a week. So it needs to be different, and that idea of the shifters being totally alien, never having a human gene as part of their makeup, and then looking at humans and their ideas of humans, that intrigued me. Because what does a wolf really think when you walk past it? It's like edible, not edible, edible. It's like, okay, this one isn't going to make a meal, so is it of value? And that change of looking at the world is what intrigued me.
Thank you all. You guys have been awesome. I'm going to hand this over to Dwayne. Hand this over to Dwayne.